What's up, YouTube? I wanted to come on here and talk about the quarterbacks in the 2025 NFL Draft. A lot of people on YouTube are coming on here and spreading, almost misinformation on the quarterbacks in the 2025 NFL Draft. They're setting unrealistic expectations on this class, in my opinion, and they cannot deliver those expectations that some people are putting on them. It's just not a strong quarterback class, I will say that. There's a lot of quarterbacks that I think maybe have. There's probably one quarterback in this draft that I think has star potential or superstar potential in the NFL. A lot of them will just be like, system quarterbacks, which there's nothing bad with being system quarterbacks, but nobody in this draft is like a Caleb Williams, a Drake May, or a Jaden Daniels compared to last season. There's just a lot of, maybe Brock Purdy's, maybe, Jared Goff. Jared Goff is an amazing player, but he's not, a ceiling grazer. That's what I think a lot of this draft is. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that, but just the way people are talking about this draft, it's just wrong. I'm someone who watches a lot of college football, so I can speak on this, and I feel very, informed about speaking on all these quarterbacks because I've watched every single one of these quarterbacks, almost all of their games. So like I said, I could definitely talk about this. But the first quarterback I want to talk about is Cam Ward. Cam Ward is a transfer from Washington State who transferred to Miami. In my opinion, should have transferred to Ohio State. But he's a guy who is sort of carrying this Miami team. Without Cam Ward, in my opinion, this Miami team would be like a 4-win team. Their defense is just atrocious. Their defense is so bad, one of the worst defenses in the nation. I'm someone who saw Cam Ward actually play in person this year against Cal Berkeley. I was at that game. Horrible first half from Cam Ward, but in the second half he redeemed himself and he led a comeback victory in that second half on the road against Cal Berkeley. Amazing win by Cam Ward. Cam Ward's a Heisman finalist right now, probably third behind Ashton Jeanty and Travis Hunter. He will be sent to New York as a Heisman finalist. He leads the country in passing touchdowns, but to me, Cam Ward is just not a perfect prospect. And like I said, he's not, a number one overall pick that we've seen in previous years. Like, he's not a Caleb Williams. He's not going to be a ceiling grazer in the NFL to me. He's going to be a fine player, like I said. He's a system quarterback in the NFL. And like I said, there's nothing wrong with that. Cam Ward is a guy who is just not going to, take your team over the top. He's not a Lamar Jackson. He's not a CJ Stroud. He's not a Josh Allen. He's not a Justin Herbert. He's just not going to be one of those guys in the NFL. So if you're a Giants fan or a Raiders fan, I'm sorry to tell you that. But I have to be honest with you because a lot of these people on YouTube are just not being honest with you. Cam Ward is not going to come in and be a top 5 quarterback in the NFL ever, in my opinion. Maybe not even a top 10. This is a guy who is going to sit in that 15 to 20 range, maybe like 12 to 20. That's my assessment on Cam Ward. Hopefully I'm wrong, for you Giants and Raiders fans. Maybe Cam Ward can prove me wrong. He's a bit on the older side. I believe he's 23 years old. He's not, one of the younger prospects in this draft. But, we see it with Bo Nix right now. Bo Nix was a 24-year-old. He's a 24-year-old rookie, and he's leading the Denver Broncos to the playoffs. So maybe you like that older quarterback. I'm not someone who really cares about age too much when it comes to the draft. I will bring it up, but it's not like a big, deal breaker for me. If a quarterback's 25 years old, but he can come in and lead you to the playoffs for first season, I don't really see anything wrong with that. That's just how I feel. But the next quarterback I want to talk about is a lot of people's favorite player in this draft, for sure favorite quarterback in this draft, and that's Shedeur Sanders, obviously the son of Coach Prime, Deion Sanders. Here's what I want to say about Shedeur Sanders because I'm someone who had a second-round grade on Shedeur Sanders coming into the year, so I will say I owe Shedeur Sanders a huge apology. He surprised me. He really did surprise me. I did not expect Colorado Buffaloes to come in and win 9 games. I really did not, and nobody really else did besides maybe Colorado fans. A lot of people had Colorado Buffaloes at 4-5 wins. Some people even had them at 3 wins. I think they expected the Big 12 to be more competitive. I did as well. But I had Colorado Buffaloes winning 6 games. But to go above and beyond and win 9 games, I think that says a lot about Shedeur Sanders and Travis Hunter being some of the best, players in the country. Travis Hunter, to me, is the best player in the country. But Shedeur Sanders is sitting in like that top 5 range. I think Shedeur Sanders deserves more, recognition and credit, and I think he should be in the Heisman race. I think he should be in the Heisman race over Dylan Gabriel. I know Dylan Gabriel is leading an undefeated team, but, the expectations set on Colorado was just super low, and Shedeur Sanders, brought them all the way up here. To lead that team to 9 wins, I think says a lot about Shedeur Sanders, and I would not be surprised if he's the number 1 overall pick. I would not be surprised. I want to see him on the Raiders or the Giants. I don't want to see any quarterback on the Giants if I'm being, completely honest. I want to see Shedeur Sanders with the Raiders. I know some Raider fans don't want to see it, but I think he's the guy. I think he's the guy for the Raiders. I really do. I really do think he's the guy for the Raiders. Another thing I want to say about Shedeur Sanders. I think he doesn't have this high of a ceiling in the NFL like some people are trying to say. I think he has a pretty comfortable floor, though. I think he's going to be a solid quarterback in the draft for any team, honestly. Any team that selects him, I think you're getting a solid quarterback. The Raiders, I know some Raider fans who don't want Shedeur Sanders because of all the stuff that comes with him. But, you really need a quarterback, and I think you need to select a quarterback in this draft, if I'm being honest. But the next quarterback I want to talk about is Jalen Milroe. Jalen Milroe is the one player in this draft who I think has this superstar potential in the NFL. I don't want to say it, but I'm going to say it. He reminds me a little bit of Lamar Jackson when Lamar Jackson was at Louisville. I just have to say that right now. Jalen Milroe is only 21 years old. Like I said, I don't think age is that big of a factor, but I just have to bring it up. You have to bring up these guys' age. And if Anthony Richardson went number 4, who was not a good player in college, Jalen Milroe is a fine player in college, and he has that freakish athlete ability, and he's young, and he plays some of the highest competition in college football. I like Jalen Milroe. I think he has the highest ceiling out of any quarterback in this draft. I know a lot of you are not going to like it. Some people think Jalen Milroe should go back to college. I think that is ridiculous. He's an NFL talent to me. Some team should take him. I think he's a top 10 pick. Some people are dropping him to like the second round. No. When this guy throws at the combine and when he goes to the combine, he's going to shoot up a lot of people's boards. I think it's ridiculous that some people have a second round grade on him. Just look at previous drafts. NFL teams love these athletes, these freakish athletes. I'm going to go out and say it right now. Don't be surprised if Jalen Milroe is the first quarterback taken in the draft. I'm going to say that right now. These NFL teams love these freakish athletes. They really, really do. And Jalen Milroe exactly is that. Jalen Milroe is my guy. He's my favorite quarterback in this draft. And I was right about Bo Nix last year. A lot of people said Bo Nix would be a second-round draft pick. I said Bo Nix would be a first-round draft pick, and sure as hell, he was a first-round draft pick. 6 quarterbacks got taken in the first round last season. But next up, I want to talk about Carson Beck. Carson Beck was the favorite to be the number 1 overall pick before the college football season, and he has not lived up to that potential. I was a Carson Beck guy coming into this year. I still kind of am, but I fell off the train a little bit. I would put him as a QB4 in this draft. If I'm a team like the Rams or like the Seahawks who has sort of an older quarterback, maybe I'm looking to draft him with our first overall pick selection in the late first. But if you get him in the second, I think it's a home run pick. If you can get a guy like Carson Beck in the second round, if you're like the Rams or the Seahawks, I think it's absolutely a home run pick. If you can, select, maybe something you actually need in the first round, if you're the Rams or the Seahawks, and then in the second round, you can get a quarterback and maybe have him sit behind Geno and Matthew Stafford, guys that are aging. I really want to see Carson Beck in that Sean McVay Rams system. That's just me, though. Carson Beck has 12 interceptions. I think that's what's really tanked his draft stock. He's crumbled under pressure this year, and he has had some very bad interceptions. It has been horrible. He's become one of the most hated guys in college football. I get it because, sort of the expectations that were put on him to start the year, but I also kind of feel bad for him. I hope Carson Beck shines in the NFL. I'm honestly wishing the best for Carson Beck. But the next guy I want to talk about is Quinn Ewers. Quinn Ewers, he's in a similar boat to Carson Beck. He's in a similar boat to Carson Beck. Had very high expectations coming into the year and hasn't really lived up to them. He hasn't been as bad as Carson Beck has in certain moments. But Quinn Ewers, certainly under pressure this year, has not been too great in the big games. He hasn't been great. He's a fine QB to me, but he's going to be nothing special in the NFL. I think he's maybe a late first rounder or a second round pick to me. If you can get a guy like Quinn Ewers, similar to Carson Beck, if you can get him in like the second, third round, I think it's a home run pick for sure, though. The next guy I want to talk about is Garrett Nussmeier. So Garrett Nussmeier has been one of the most up and down players in college football. This guy had played himself into like the first round, I would say, throughout the middle part of the season, and then towards this back half of the season, he's a guy that might go back to college. That's how bad he's been. I know LSU fans are ripping him apart right now. The inconsistent play from Garrett Nussmeier has been so awful. It has been horrible. The Texas A&M and Bama game was what did it for me. This guy got scratched off my board for a day 1 and a day 2 pick. He's just been horrible. LSU is missing the college football playoffs in large part due to him, in my opinion. He has 11 interceptions, just one right behind Carson Beck as we speak. But like I said, this is a guy I would not be surprised goes back to college. I think he should, because he played himself back down to like a day 2, maybe even a day 3 pick. Garrett Nussmeier. I was rooting for him. I really was rooting for him. But like I said, LSU, I wouldn't even be surprised if LSU fans don't even want him back. He might be a transfer portal guy. He really might be a transfer portal guy. The next guy I want to talk about, though, is Jackson Dart. I was a big Jackson Dart guy coming into the year. That Jackson Dart to Trey Harris connection has been super special to watch this year. I was pushing for Jackson Dart to win Heisman before the year. I thought Ole Miss was going to come in. I thought they had a very solid, underrated team. And, they've kind of disappointed me. They really have disappointed me. They still might make the college football playoffs. We'll see. It comes out on Tuesday. It's Sunday as I'm recording this video. But Jackson Dart has sort of disappointed me. He's similar to Garrett Nussmeier. Played himself into maybe not the first round, but maybe like the early second. But he's been super inconsistent. The up and down play, that Florida game, man, oh my God. He threw 3 interceptions. Only 2 counted because one of them got called back. But he threw 3 interceptions in like the last 3 minutes when the Ole Miss needed a score. It was just horrible. It was horrible. One of the worst games I've ever seen from Jackson Dart. This back half of the season has been brutal for him. I think he's a day 2 guy. I think he's a day 2 guy still, though. I think once he throws at his pro day, it's going to be solid. I think he's going to play himself into the day 2 pick. That arm talent is just super special. And he has the name, Jackson Dart. Like, Dart as a quarterback, that being your last name, I think is elite. I just want to throw that in there. That doesn't really matter. Obviously, they don't care about that. But the next guy I want to talk about is Dillon Gabriel. Dillon Gabriel, on the older side of this draft. I believe he is the oldest quarterback in this draft. He's most likely a day 2, maybe a day 3 guy. I think he's going to be a career backup in the NFL. Maybe a team, takes him in the second, third round. I don't think he's a second round pick. I actually think he's like a third or a fourth round pick. He's a Heisman finalist, but when it comes to, he doesn't really have the frame to be an NFL quarterback. He's 5'11", and he doesn't really have like crazy arm talent. He doesn't have anything that wows you that's going to translate to Sundays, honestly. But Bo Nix is a guy who, he was Oregon's quarterback last year. He was on the older side, and look how he's turned out for Denver. I know I've mentioned him a couple times in this video, but a lot of people are just putting too much emphasis on age of these quarterbacks. If they can play, they can play. That's how I look at it. I was a huge Bo Nix guy going into last season, and a lot of people were trying to, put him down because of his age. And look, he might win Offensive Rookie of the Year. So don't put too much emphasis on age, Don't listen to these guys that are saying that. If quarterbacks can play, they can play, and you should absolutely draft them if they can play. So that's all I wanted to come on here and say. I wanted to call out a few people that, I'm not going to actually call them out, but there's a few YouTubers on here that are coming on here and just giving, fan bases false hope. And I'm not a fan of that. I really am not a fan of that. So I wanted to come on here and spew some knowledge. So I'll catch you guys in the next video. Peace.